Welcome to the Headley Highlight Show's Headley Headspaces. And this Headspace is called George Galloway, leader of the Workers' Party, 3 times parliamentarian, arrested at Gatwick Airport. Under Schedule 3 of the Terrorism and Border Security Act 2019. And no, this is not a joke. It's Authoritarianism 101. So before I jump into my headspace, which is George Galloway, leader of the Workers' Party, 3 times parliamentarian, arrested at Gatwick Airport under Schedule 3 of the Terrorism and Border Security Act 2019. And no, this is not a joke. It is Authoritarianism 101. God, that's a really long title. I'd just like to say a couple of things. 1, please subscribe. Select the notification bell and select all, and you'll hear all of my headspaces. 2, make a donation. I am very partial to 3 wings and chips and a Miranda or a piece of Bitcoin. Also, please do like, share and comment. Now that we've done that preamble, let's jump straight into this. Now, this is not a new story in the sense this happened about a week ago, but the point is I didn't cover it because I picked up some other things during the show the other day, and I just think it's incumbent upon me as a creator and also as somebody who is familiar with Mr. Galloway, knows him and his family. I just wanted to lend my voice to the outrage as to what was happening with him and many other individuals in this country who are perceived to not parrot the establishment narrative, and they stand very differently out there and speak their truth. And they speak their truth. They have significant followings and they don't kowtow to a deferential, imperialistic, and often, as far as I'm concerned, very myopic opinion of how the world should look. Mr. Galloway isn't like that. And him and his wife were arrested at Gatwick Airport. And can you imagine how traumatic and frightening that must have been? He was not charged, thankfully. However, he was detained. And because I watch his program, which is Moats, the mother of all talk shows, so for those people who've never watched it, it's excellent. You get such really important news. He has really fabulous guests, and he gives the perspective of the wider community, especially the global south. And so it's a really cool program. So I'm watching the program and I found out exactly what was happening. And I'm also in the Workers' Party as well, people. I stood last year as a candidate. That I found out what was happening, and there was stuff in our internal communications. But I was just really, I wasn't surprised in a sense that it happened, but I was shocked because I knew beforehand other journalists, other creators had been arrested and have had their homes, ransacked and their properties invaded under these acts. And I was very saddened to hear that had happened to Mr. Galloway and Gatwick. And I just feel like this country is moving more and more towards a very authoritarian, controlling state. We use these languages like authoritarian. We're living in a straitjacket. Let's talk in ordinary people's terms, like I understand. We're living like in a straitjacket. If you don't agree with the established narrative, you're just destroyed publicly. You're either silenced, people try to destroy you financially, you're booted out of what's supposed to be, important circles, just because you don't agree with everything that everybody else says. And the other thing that I think is really worrying about this is that when him and his wife were arrested, they were held for 9 hours. They weren't charged, but they weren't allowed to not answer any questions, because by not answering any questions, that's seen as an admission of guilt. So it was really, I just think you have to be very one, you got to be really patient with yourself, because I can imagine the trauma of that. You're just coming back in. Me, I'd have a couple of my I like that Irish peaty whiskey that you can only get when you go duty free. It's very nice. I'd have a few bottles of them and they'd be like rocking up to me, giving me stress. I hope to God I'm not talking and bringing nothing on myself, but you know what I'm saying? You should be able to speak freely in this country. And I'm saying, I think freedom of speech is really under attack. And it's not freedom of speech like your Nigel Farage version of freedom of speech. I'm not saying that what he's saying doesn't have cogency, because quite some of the stuff, I'm sorry to say, you might not like it, but I think Nigel Farage has got some points, especially around digital IDs. Okay? But I'm talking about the side to dissent. What if you're on the left? What if you're on what's called, you have more strong left-wing opinions than other people? Does that mean you then get arrested when you come back in from going to France on a day trip? Because you've written some tweets or you've written some posts or something like that. That's what I'm talking about. That's what, to me, authoritarianism is. I can't get the word out. Authoritarianism is. I think that's what authoritarianism is. It's about either you do and walk in this direction, think this thing, behave this way, and if you don't, we'll punish you. And I think this is the reason why so many people are feeling so dissatisfied and a sense of disconnection from the country that many of us grew up in, and we don't recognize it, not because there's different people here, because the structures are so extractive and they're so abusive to the ordinary people. I mean, what was the point of arresting George Galloway and his wife at the airport? What, to breathe fear into people, to show them that, we can really make your lives difficult? Well, we know that already. But what else was the point? Is it to try and make us people not talk? Because you're going to use these blunt instruments basically to repress your own community. I just think that this is not the country that I remember growing up in. I don't remember it being like this. I remember things being very, very different. And I don't think I'm looking at it with rose-tinted glasses either. I don't think so. Maybe I'm in the space with Jack Polanski, the head of the Green Party. I should have played you his video that he did. It was nice. It actually touched people. It was moving. That's probably why people are in droves, because people want to feel a sense of connection. And I just don't think many people do. And when you go around arresting prominent people in our community who don't agree with the established narrative, act differently, behave differently, then what does that say about us? You either be a square in this square grid, or you just can't sit on the grid at all. Is that the society that we're living in now? Under calamity care? Anyway, well, that's my 2 pence on that. God, this week's Headspaces are somewhat somber, darling, but then you wouldn't expect anything else. Not somber, but, when you start thinking about things, you think to yourself, gosh, I really have to make an assessment about, what I'm going to do. How am I going to navigate this as I grow older and my knees become more arthritic? Anyway, give me your thoughts. Give me your 2 pence. Don't forget to make a donation. Jump up all in the comments and kata. My throat is dry. Not dry enough to say make a donation. See you next week.